Garza, and I'm the Development Director for Engagement and Advancement at Point Foundation. I want to thank you for joining us for Point Foundation's very first Scholar Showcase on Zoom. Over the coming weeks, we'll be hosting showcases for various regions across the country. And tonight, we start with our Chicago area event. The goal of these showcases is to keep our family of donors and supporters connected to the work that we do. As everyone knows, the pandemic has kept us physically distanced for over a year now, but we want to make sure that you're up to date on the incredible accomplishments and work that our scholars and our alums are doing. Shortly, you'll be hearing from two of our alums, Le'Priya White and Bridgette Davis, who will be in discussion and answering questions that were submitted by registrants before the event. First, though, I want to introduce our moderator, Kelly Horton. Kelly is a member of our board of directors, and there she is on the screen, and she has helped Point Foundation expand our presence in both Washington, D.C. and in Chicago, where she lives now. Kelly is a nationally recognized food systems and environmental nutrition policy expert. She has served in leadership roles in private and publicly held for-profit companies, nonprofit management, within the Obama administration, and as a senior advisor to several members of Congress. She is currently Senior Vice President, Food Advisory and Corporate Reputation at Oberlin. Prior to working at Oberlin, Kelly was North America Policy Director for Mars Incorporated. As a board member at Point, she was a key member of the team that presented our highly successful Taste of Point event in Washington, D.C., which I love. And she has also secured several grants and partnerships that support Point's work. She is a truly thoughtful leader, and so with that, I'm really pleased to introduce and to turn it over to Kelly. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much, David. I'm so delighted to be here tonight with two of our distinguished Point Foundation flagship scholars. Point Foundation's flagship scholarship is Point's original scholarship program, and it provides scholarships, mentorship, and leadership training for undergraduate and graduate students at accredited four-year colleges and universities. I'm really excited to introduce Bridgette Davis, and she is a doctoral candidate and DOE Institute of Education Scientist pre-doctoral fellow at the Crown Family School of Social Work, Policy, and Practice at the University of Chicago, as well as a two-time Point Foundation Scholar. She was in the 2014 and the 2016 Scholar classes as she reapplied and was accepted when she pursued her funding for her PhD. Her academic and research focus is on the expanding inequality that emerges among U.S. youth via disparate trajectories within the transition to adulthood. And as an out queer middle school and high school educator of more than 10 years and a first-generation college graduate herself, Ms. Davis led more than 1,000 students in Atlanta and Chicago to achieve meaningful academic gains and successful transition to college. Bridgette began graduate school at the University of Chicago in 2014 after being inspired by her students who were attending the nation's best colleges and universities, then she earned her master's degree in social work and was named the Wilma Rudolph Award winner for Promise as a Scholar and in the field of social welfare. She serves on multiple community and advisory boards and volunteers numerous hours per week in service to local schools and community organizations, and is currently completing her dissertation in which she is following 31 first-generation college students through their first 2 years of life after high school during the COVID-19 pandemic. She lives and works on the south side of Chicago with her wife, Ellen, and her Lakeland Terrier, Vita. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate your time. And next, I'd like to introduce Le'Priya White, who was born and raised in Chicago. And Le'Priya was a member of Point's 2017 Scholar cohort. Being an openly queer woman of color, Le'Priya knew she wanted to help foster healthy spaces for queer and trans people of color. Creating a sense of community through activism and education was the goal she had set for herself to accomplish during her time at Oberlin College. During her college career, Le'Priya has taken on several leadership positions in community-focused organizations, such as being chair for ZOMI, a group that operates as a safe space for queer and transgender people of color, and also coordinator of Queer Beers, a monthly community gathering for queer and trans students. I wish I had that when I was in college. At the end of her sophomore year, Le'Priya founded Queer and Trans People of Color Hall, ensuring a community for QT, POC, to live in a space dedicated to the love and support of queer trans folks. Le'Priya was awarded the Mellon Mays Fellowship in 2017, a program dedicated to increasing the number of underrepresented minority groups and supporting those students on their path towards pursuing a PhD. Her research focused on understanding the relationships between identity and self-representation through the fashion aesthetics of queer and trans college students of color at predominantly white colleges and universities. After graduating in May 2019, Le'Priya accepted an offer as an Oberlin Shansi Fellow and has been teaching English as a second language to graduate students and PhD students at Shaanxi Agricultural University in Taiju, sorry, I said it wrong, Taiju, China. Thank you so much for being here, Le'Priya.
Thank you.
Very excited to see you both today, and to get our discussion kicked off, I'd love to just hear from you both a little bit, telling us, I know I just gave your bios, but maybe you could fill in a little bit of color about yourself and your educational journey, and maybe we'll start with Bridgette.
Okay, thanks so much, Kelly. So I am from a town of 325 people in rural Iowa. I was different from the start and like wanted to wear blazers into elementary school when everybody else was wearing like jeans and farm gear. So I definitely like knew that I didn't really belong where I was from very early on. But I was the first person in my family to go to college, and my dad worked as a meat packer from the day that he turned 18 years old. And so he had a set of opportunities that was before him that helped him kind of get some things in place for us. And after 31 years of working as a meat packer, he actually took a job as a custodian at a local college because he knew and found out from a former colleague that that would get him tuition exchange for his daughters. And so 2 years before I entered college, and that's rare because custodians are typically contracted out and don't get that benefit anymore. But he was able to get that benefit for me, and so my tuition was half off for my college at a liberal arts school. And I knew all growing up, being in my small town, and then also once I went to college and had that opportunity, that things were not so equal for everyone, and things didn't work out. Social mobility was something that was really, really tough, and schools weren't great places for everyone. And so when I left college, I joined Teach for America. And so I taught in Atlanta Public Schools in 2003 to 2006, and then coached teachers there. And so my journey has been one, I think, of a kind of obsession with educational equity, which is really aligned with Point's mission since I was even pretty small. In terms of my educational journey from there, I taught for over 15 years before deciding I wanted to go back to get a master's degree. And really that was inspired by my students and their lives and their achievements. And I realized that I hadn't done what I'd asked them to do, which is go to the best colleges and universities in the country and really push themselves. And I had applied to one college in my basement by myself. And so I applied to the University of Chicago and was accepted and had a great master's program there. And really Point was pivotal in me also pursuing a PhD as well.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Le'Priya, how about yourself? Could you share a bit about yourself and your educational journey?
Yeah, so I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. Was raised by my grandmother and my aunt. I went to Catholic school for elementary school, and I went to a charter school for high school. That's actually where I met Ms. Davis. And then I went to Oberlin. I think for me, I think what really made me who I am today was going to the Catholic school starting out, just because that's actually where I came out. So I came out in 5th grade, and just my own experience there. First coming out at a Catholic school was definitely not ideal, but also just being younger, you experience, I guess for me, I experienced a lot of hate early on. So that really just pushed me to want to surround myself by more people like me, get the support that I clearly, wasn't getting before. So yeah, I feel like because of all of that in my childhood, like I really pushed to, you know, help other queer students, queer youth, just so they won't, you know, have to deal with all the hardship it comes with coming out alone. Like you said, at Oberlin, I did a lot of like activities with social groups. Besides from even just the queer group I worked with the ABUSHWA, which is the Black Student Union. I worked with La Alianza Latinx, which is the Latinx student group. So a lot of that really shaped what I wanted to do, because initially I came into Oberlin wanting to do like psychology and chemistry. I was really set on this idea of being like a psychiatrist. But I think as I was being more involved on campus and in the town, I just really wanted to do something more in the community. And so I started thinking about, you know, sociology as a potential route. And so I ended up majoring in sociology. And right now I'm just really considering like social work or public health. A lot of programs I've seen talked about community health, which I think is really fascinating. It really brings in that social science, but also regular science I love. And yeah, just, you know, that's what I've been up to. Right now I'm teaching for Shansi. I'm teaching English as a second language. And so that's ending soon, and I just hope to continue that as well, maybe locally for like Lorain County, so it's more centered on like Spanish speakers rather than Chinese speakers. But still, I don't know, I just feel like I want to be that resource. I want to help teach people, help them out. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing.
That's awesome. You are both so inspiring, and I have so many questions offline now from just hearing your stories. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm curious, wow, so many questions, but could you tell us a little bit about how you feel Point has supported the impact in your journey and your path after school? And what I think is interesting about both of you is that you not only went on to pursue higher education, you both went into research. So I think that would be an interesting lens to think about as well. Whoever wants to start.
I guess I can start because I'm still technically in school. There's been no after school since I ended my Point time. So I guess the way Point really impacted me is I think so I've spent my entire career focused on educational equity and specifically around social mobility for low income and first generation college students and youth. And specifically also thinking about being an anti-racist teacher. Like, how do we actually build schools that serve specifically Black students that have high expectations, that really support students with reaching the goals that they and their families have for them, and make sure that schools, I feel like schools are a place of promise, but they also can be such a place of peril. And so how do we fulfill the promise of schools was kind of the question that I always had. And, you know, honestly, like I was an out teacher from my first day teaching middle schoolers in Atlanta. And I had just come out that summer after leaving college. Like I didn't come out until I was 22, but I was like, well, I'm sure just who I am. So I was teaching middle schoolers and I was out. And while my queer identity was like ever present, because I've looked like this since third grade, but it wasn't like my central focus. And I don't exactly know how to think about that, but it wasn't like the problem area or the kind of, it wasn't just central to kind of my life's work in my mind. But over time, I think I started to realize, you know, through having students like Le'Priya, through teaching queer students and encountering families where parents would come out over time, I realized actually being exactly who I am, wherever I am, actually is absolutely central to kind of my theory of what good teaching and good schools are. And it's also like how the work gets done. And so when I applied and got the Point Foundation Scholarship, I think it made me realize how central, like how being queer is really a superpower in everything I've been able to accomplish before that. And then I think it made me realize that scholarship and research that could be done by somebody who's not only a first generation college student and had an experience of being a rural, you know, from a working class family in a rural community, like all the kind of outsider statuses I had were one thing, and like shared lived experience with like the subjects that I was and the participants I would be interested in. But I think realizing that my queerness was part of what got people to trust me. It was what got people to know that I was being honest and I was trustworthy, like I was there with them and authentic. I also just think it really convinced me that the scholarship that I would do in the future as a PhD candidate, and then also, you know, hopefully in the future as a faculty member, or like it would really, it could really be different. It could be a unique contribution, even though I wasn't specifically asking questions about queer students. I knew that my studies would be inclusive of queer students. It wouldn't actually draw the distinction of the binary that there are queer students and then there's non-queer students and their experiences are totally different, but think about that journey broadly. And so I think Point gave me the confidence and the clarity that the questions of identity were really important to me and that I would be able to add a unique contribution.
Absolutely, and having that visibility is so important as well. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. How about you, Le'Priya? How would you say that Point has supported you in your journey?
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback on that, I think that Point has also given me or like helped me a lot with confidence. You know, with different speaking opportunities such as this, or even like the honors gala where I presented at, just making me, you know, be able to talk to big groups. I think that was really helpful, especially since specifically with the honors gala, I did research a little bit after. So like being able to present in front of a large group was very helpful in that. I think even like selection weekend, like being able to have those different skills with different types of interviewing, I was able to present myself using a board, which is a lot. Like I've done that one more time other than that for like research, but I think that really prepared me to, you know, one, put my own creativity in the board to describe, you know, who I am, what I do, but also to present myself with it, but also in the other part of the interview where you talk to like a group of people, being able to present myself without something was really cool. I met a lot of cool people at like the leadership conference. Yeah, it really pushed me to do the research I did for the Melon Project because I focused on, like what you said, self representation, identity. I look more so into like clothing as a way of like code switching. So like, let's say, you know, if someone came out more or came out in college, like the way they express themselves on campus in their own like little home compared to like maybe they'll revert back to how they dress when they're back at home with their family, maybe somewhere not like that they're not really comfortable showing their full selves. And so I think the fellowship really did inspire me to do that. Yeah, I think a big part is community service too, just because you had to do a lot of, like you had to do the community service projects. And I don't know, for me, I guess I didn't really think, like I would do some, like I did my org work, but I didn't really think of how I could like tie in the Oberlin town community with the college until I was introduced to those projects. It made me really think about like, wow, like I'm doing a lot of good on campus. How can I make this bigger? How can I bring in the Oberlin town? Really have that relationship with the students and the townies. How can I go about that? So I think like in a lot of ways, in different events that I've been to or the interview really helped me think about like how I could present myself, how I can help others. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Bridgette, is there anything you want to add listening to Le'Priya?
I mean, I would just say Le'Priya and I both were able to present at Point LA Honors. And there's just something about like, once you present in front of like Judith Light and famous people, like after that, like nobody's scary. So I do think like Point Honors and being able to, I also spoke at the leadership conference and gave the keynote a scholar address in DC. And I think these kind of speaking experiences and experiences in meeting with people across industries, across sectors, across life experiences, across geographic kind of domains, I think makes you not only, I think, able to communicate effectively, but also makes you really interested in listening to people's stories. And when people would come, I think, to both Le'Priya or I and connect with our stories, and they may be somebody you wouldn't expect would find your story inspirational or would share something about themselves that connected, I think that just, it made me feel not only close to the Point community, but it made me feel close to a multi-generational queer community in a way that I had never really experienced outside of places like bars, honestly. You know, and as a teacher, for me, I was the only out teacher in both of, I was the only out teacher in the first school I taught in, and I was the first out teacher and administrator, like school leader in the high school that I taught in. And so there was never someone there that had like paved the way for me that I could look up to, but meeting people through Point who'd been the first, who'd, you know, had troubles with their own families, had kind of a whole range of experiences, I think really shifted and changed, I think, in lots of ways, my perspective, and let me be a mentee and let me be somebody who followed as much as I was, you know, professionally really someone who led in that space.
That's fantastic. Thank you. You both mentioned really important points of the scholarship. It's not just the money to make sure you can achieve your goals financially, but also that community service, gaining the leadership skills, being mentored, and then Bridgette, you also do a lot of mentoring yourself. So I think that's great to hear, kind of full circle, right? Which is great. Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about the community service project and how that has inspired your work throughout the scholarship and then going forward?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I could go first. So my community service project, I was doing a clothing drive for queer and trans students in terms of like getting business clothes, or like not really business clothes, but like clothes you can wear at a job interview or at work. Just because I know, like, I've took a lot of like classes on like what you wear professionally and etiquette, and a lot of it, you know, I had to like sit in with a PowerPoint talking about how, like, you know, if you're a woman, you gotta wear skirts and dresses and all this stuff that I don't want to wear, would never wear ever. And so just, you know, sitting in all of those meetings a lot, it just got really annoying. And I felt like, you know, I don't know, I just really want to be in a space that I can be myself, my authentic self. So I really like wanted to do this clothing drive just so, you know, I can help other people feel more comfortable with what they're wearing, help them out. Just because after a while, like, I just stopped caring about like the whole presentation type of thing. Like, I would wear like my polos or my button-ups, you know, but I realized, you know, not a lot of people have that type of support, don't have that type of resource. You know, maybe have strict families or probably can't even buy that stuff. So I just wanted to, you know, be that support for those students, or even in the town while we were at Oberlin. So that was my community service. And I think that really did drive my whole fashion research too, because I was able to look into, you know, how people dress when they're, you know, in their communities that they feel most comfortable with, or by themselves, you know, because even then you could probably switch the way you dress just to fit in with a group of people, you know. but also seeing what they went through when they were home, the difficulties of like really openly expressing yourself, maybe the challenges of that, that I never really thought of just because I came out so early, so I didn't really think about, I already started dressing how I wanted, and like my family just had to deal with it. I never really, I didn't really talk to them about it. I just switched the way I dress, and it just became like the norm, and they eventually got over it or whatever. But getting to know other people and like their own battles with clothing, especially at a older age, I thought was interesting to me, just because I did this so young. And as a kid, you don't really think much about it like that, so getting that perspective of someone who switched up or like figured out themselves as they got older, I thought that was really interesting to me. So so the community service project definitely influenced my research.
Yeah, I think that's important even at any age. I mean, you have me thinking about my capsule wardrobe right now, which strategically hides all my tattoos. So it's very important work. Thank you for that. I guess that also leads me into my next question, because you're really talking about society issues that layer on to our community that we just don't even consider, right? And what I think is interesting, that over a third of our point scholars are in the humanities and social sciences looking at these types of issues. And I'm curious how each of you chose your field, and we heard a little bit in the beginning, but just specifically why you think it's important to support the LGBT leaders in your field. And honestly, I see you both as leaders in your field, and I know you're just getting started, you're still finishing your PhD, but you're already there, and it's just so inspiring. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on that, like why you chose this course of study and what you see for the future of it. Bridgette, do you want to start?
Sure. Let me think. So let me just make sure. You want to talk about why I think it's important that there are queer people, that we support queer leaders in the social sciences specifically, or in like social work. Okay. I think there are so many reasons that I think, but I think a lot of it comes down to kind of what we think of as knowledge about the social world. And I think when we think about what knowledge is as a social world, so much of our scholarship comes from, multi-generational college graduates who are white and who are men. Like that is who sociologists have been, like at the University of Chicago, et cetera, right? There are a number of contributing, right, folks of color who have contributed amazing scholarship to sociology, social work, social welfare, but they're far less recognized, and oftentimes their work gets like pigeonholed to particular populations, versus their ways of seeing the world being core theories that drive the way we think about sameness and difference, belonging and exclusion, lots of the big questions about society. And so I think for me, I think the reason we need to support queer leaders in our field is because I think queer people have a way, and this is not to say like we're all the same, but have a way of, I think, asking different questions and wanting more complicated answers. And I think that like when you have that in the social sciences or in a field like social work that's also a helping profession, to me, you get, I think, number one, I think a respect for the dignity of all human life that comes from the experience of being othered. But I also think you get a more complicated and nuanced set of ideas about the world that help everybody kind of put on a new lens and think about their social world differently. So that's what I would say in terms of scholarship. And I think in terms of social work and the helping professions or education, because I'm like at the cross section of those, I just think you said it before, Kelly, like visibility in these professions is so important. Schools can be such normative places. And I mean, even Le'Priya, knew me when I was in like kind of like school mom drag, I feel like in certain ways. Like I used to like wear pearls and like do all kinds of funny things. But like I think clothing is and being out and being visible and being a mentor and being a person, like a colleague, is so important in the helping professions. It's absolutely important. We serve so many people that need, I think, just a beacon, in their day or in their experience in social services or education. Go ahead, Le'Priya.
Yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I think visibility is important. I think just highlighting the differences, the different experiences we all have and bring to the table is very important. For me, I think, with these helping professions, and like having my own like experience, I really do want to have like that person to confide in that just like me. Just like it gives a sense of community, really. And so, yeah, for like sociology or social work, public health, like for me, it's very important for me to see like, Black or brown POC, queer POC in these professions, because at the end of the day, it makes me feel like I can do it too, And a lot of that I see like before, like even at the leadership conference, right? Like there's a lot of lawyers and I was like, not that I'm interested in law, but I just saw like, wow, like I didn't even know like we had like that many queer lawyers that were like really going out in this like field, they're dressing how they want to dress. Like that was just so comforting to see, like, wow, I could be that too. So I think not only like it gives a sense of like community, like especially if you're in that field, it's just like inspiration, to be honest, to see that happening. Especially since like growing up, you definitely wouldn't have seen that a lot. And now that, now today you see a lot of that, it's kind of like, wow, like I could be that too. And yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it builds into one of my next questions is, this is the 20th anniversary of Point, which we're all super excited about. But so much has changed for LGBTQ scholars since we were founded in 2001. And I'm curious, what are your hopes for the next generation of LGBTQ scholars and the community over the next 20 years? Do you have any ideas or thoughts on that?
I mean, so I'll be honest, like I was an undergrad and could have applied to Point, but didn't know it existed. And it would have helped me so much. Like I was a college athlete. I experienced a ton of bullying by my own teammates when they perceived me as queer, and I hadn't come out, I didn't know yet. And I think about like what, 20 years ago, what Point would have meant to me then versus like what scholars are getting from Point now, which like they may or may not face similar challenges, but I think we've advanced so far in terms of the support, and then also Point's able to like pull such a broader network of people across all different sectors and across the country now, both with the alumni network, the network of board members from every single location, the network of donors, the network, like I feel like Point has its tentacles like all over the country now. So I think like I'm hopeful that scholars, no matter what their discipline, no matter what their identity, like can really find both meaningful connection with Point and meaningful intergenerational kind of experiences, but also I think can like find really great matches for mentorship and can take mentorship beyond the scholarship into like lifelong relationships that I think can kind of span. And I hope, I guess, that over the next 20 years, we have a chance to kind of come, I know the pandemic has made this all very hard, but like would bring us a chance, I think, as scholars and alums all the way back to kind of come together with a renewed vision for what we want and what we think is possible in this country, and especially if we work together across our sectors. I think that would be really, really inspiring.
Yeah, for me, I think that just encouraging, like, more diverse and more inclusive like type of future would be good. I saw that there's a BI POC scholarship now for Point. And when I was applying, they didn't have that. So just seeing even that like small change and like being more like inclusive, making sure they hold space to highlight these people and like their experiences, all their accomplishments. I think that's like very important and a really good start to bringing us all together. Because I feel like even within the queer community, it's still kind of divided, you know, between like, you know, the POC queers or white queers. It's just, I feel like, you know, just making sure you have that space for like POCs is very important. So I really do like that that's a thing now. And I just hope that we continue to bring each other together, lift each other up. And yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is important. That was launched this year, which we're super excited about. And then a couple of years ago, Point launched its community college scholarship program as well, which has just been phenomenal growth for the organization. So you mentioned a little bit, both of you, about bringing people together, thinking about the future. So have you stayed in contact with folks from your cohort? Are you, you know, in contact with the scholars that you went through with, and do you still connect?
For me, I mean, not like regularly. I see them from the like the Facebook alum LaPointe group, so that's nice. Just like when people post and like you check in with each other. I do have one close friend, Sicha, but I don't really know what class he was in. He was way before me. He was an alum when I met him. So, but yeah, I do talk to some people. Obviously, Ms. Davis too, still. But yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think the benefit of I think there's a huge benefit to having the undergraduates and then also having graduate level scholars. I think that was a super smart and savvy way to think about having the scholarship, because I think it really lends to, there's just a difference, and it's really important. And I think, so there's a number of people that were in the graduate fellowship or the scholarship at the same time as I was, who like every time they're in Chicago, you know, we get together. There's also folks who like I've worked on, you know, campaigns, like political campaigns with, who are alums that work in the city of Chicago. There's just a number of people who I'm still in touch with. I wouldn't say they're like, you know, my best friends, but they're people who like when they are up to something, like Jacob Tabaya came and gave a talk at our booth at the University of Chicago, and I knew he was going to be talking to all these business school students, and that was it. And I like showed up and sat in the front row just to like give them all kinds of confidence. But for me, like the idea that we show up for each other and we reach out when we can or when we need one another is really the value of, I think, the Point kind of scholar and alumni class. And then in terms of my mentors, like I'm definitely in really close contact with my most recent mentor, who was kind of a natural mentor that we brought on. And then I definitely can still reach out to my first mentor as well. I also like am in touch with former board members and people who I've met through the process of interviewing and through even donor events. So it's been a great way, I think, to connect and stay connected to a number of people in the queer community.
That's great. And you guys have mentioned throughout a little bit that you knew each other before. And when we were preparing for this, Le'Priya, you shared a really cool story about how you met, and I would love for folks to hear that if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, so I met Ms. Davis when I was 14. So freshman in high school, really just trying to figure out, you know, what's the best way to get into college, because instantly I was like, you know, high school's fun, but the end goal is to go to college. So instantly I just skipped some years in my mind, you know, and I'm really a planner, so I really wanted to, you know, make sure I was set up the best way to get into school, like what activities I needed to do, like grades, what like scholarships, stuff like that. And so Ms. Davis was actually pretty sure the only person out. And after dealing with everything in like elementary school, I was like, I just really want a support system, some support from someone queer, someone that understands me and like what I'm going through in terms of that. So she was I guess a college counselor, college advisor for the seniors, and I just wanted to introduce myself right away. And, just make sure she knows my face, make sure she knows who I am. And so we could like work together to figure out what I could do. Then that's when she introduced Point to me.
Okay, wait. That was Le'Priya, when she said she was a planner, just for the audience, this was when Le'Priya was in 9th grade. 9th grade, she finds me and says, I want to go to a great college. How do I do it? And then I literally laid out like, okay, well, there's this thing sophomore year where you can go to Wado College. Would you want to go away for the summer? And she was like, yes. And then she got that. I was like, here's how you get that. She did that and then went to Maryland her sophomore year. Then she was like, how do I pay for college? And then I was like, well, there's this thing called the Posse Scholarship that's going to pay for most of your college. And then Le'Priya got that. Then Le'Priya, I was just remembering this. My community service project, my first year as a scholar, was a event for all of the students from like 18 schools that were LGBTQ identified to help them understand all the LGBTQ identity-based scholarships and to apply for them. And Le'Priya came, and that's how she applied to Point. So like, you can keep going, Le'Priya, but I just wanted them to understand, like, you really started early with this preparation.
Yeah, I really did. Like, I just stepped foot in high school and instantly think, okay, college, how I get, not even really thinking about high school things, like prom and all that. I just wanted to reach the goal. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where I was gonna end there. You introduced me to Point, and I applied, and we just, kept being friends and like, I would say colleagues. We're doing this talk. This is fun. But yeah, we just like kept in contact even when I went to Oberlin. And yeah, I just, you feel like family. You definitely are family. So it's been a great ride for all these years.
That is awesome and just really a beautiful story. And we so appreciate you sharing that with all of us. And I just want to end on one last question that you just kind of walked right into. What kind of advice would you give to our incoming class of scholars who are going to be announced in June?
I would say, just like, I don't know, keep fighting, keep doing your work. No matter how small or how little you may think it is, it's all valid. Whatever you're doing, it does make a difference in the community, whether you believe it or not. Another good advice that I got from like when I was doing Mellon is like treat yourself. Even if it's small, like if accomplishment or something, you accomplished one thing today or your list or whatever, just celebrate that. Because like, especially now since it's a pandemic, it's a hard time. Like sometimes you may not want to get up or do anything. Just remembering that, like, if you did do something, or even if you decide to have a chill day because you always busy, it matters. Self-care matters. And don't forget to, love yourself throughout the way.
Great advice. Bridgette?
I think my advice would be that, like, Point is what you make of it. And you are one of very few people around the country selected that year. Like, looking at yourself in this group of amazing achievers, like, understanding the privilege in that and the responsibility in that. And I think really maximizing on relationships and the experiences you can have via Point. I would also say that like Le'Priya said, the community service, like sometimes you're like racking your brain about what could I do that would really make a difference. And given all the other kind of responsibilities that a lot of Point Scholars have, it's sometimes hard to think your project will really be impactful. But I think the biggest thing is actually internalizing that community service is something that it should just always be a part of our lives, and that it doesn't need to be formal to be important, and that there are opportunities for service to others in our communities like almost every day. And to think about kind of the small ways that community service, and especially kind of intergenerationally engaged community service in the queer community can be really important and life affirming. So I think that would be my advice.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for sharing your experience, your advice, and your stories and your time with us today. Really inspirational. Knowing the impact that the Point Foundation has made in your lives and others is what keeps me really engaged personally and energized in the work. And just even when we kicked off, I was like, yeah, this is why I do this. This is why I'm involved with this organization. This is just so important. And it's why I donate. And I just appreciate you both so much. And I'll turn it back over to David now to wrap us up for the evening.
Hi, everyone. I think you can hear me. And so I want to just echo some of what Kelly said, which is a huge thank you to Le'Priya White and, oh, hi, there you are. Le'Priya White and Bridgette Davis for sharing your stories and your thoughts with us this evening. Like Kelly said, hearing you speak about these experiences is a real reminder to all of us, I think, of why we are part of Point Foundation, why we believe in this organization, and why we continue to be part of this Point family in the different ways that we all are. I want to say thank you to Kelly for moderating this event. You were fantastic, and thank you for everything you do as a member of our board of directors. And I want to thank Nicole Rizzuto for putting this whole event together. Nicole, great job. Thank you. Lastly, I want to thank everyone who has joined as a participant for this event. If you are as moved as we are, and if you're inspired by what you heard this evening, please do not hesitate to support our work by making a donation at www.pointfoundation.org. As you can imagine, every dollar that we raise goes a long way towards being able to support scholars all across the country. As you heard, we will be announcing our new class of scholars in the coming months. So please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. With that, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at davidg@pointfoundation.org. And thank you so very much. Have a wonderful evening.